I would have to say that the building of the sanctuary, which was a dream when I came here, the conference had built the first section. We needed a sanctuary because the people wanted a place to worship. We worshiped in Fellowship Hall. It was a very worshipful place. Folks were tired of sitting on metal folding chairs. They said every place we go to in Bowie, you sit on a metal folding chair. The church was growing. First year, I took in 250 members. There were just a lot of people moving into Bowie. The significant thing about getting the building built is by the time we were ready to build, interest rates had shot up to 10%. We had to cut back the plans. There was an attitude in the denomination that we had spent too much money on buildings, bricks and mortar. We need to be spending it on people. We had people in this congregation who did not think that we should build the sanctuary. There were other churches in Bowie that determined not to build. But somehow this congregation held on to its commitment to mission and yet found ways to build the sanctuary. And the church did not sacrifice its mission-mindedness that Alan and Teddy Hogel had built into this congregation. The other tribute I would pay to Alan Hogel was when I came. He was here the first 4 years. He did the hard work, which was starting with a group of people in the parsonage living room. And then they moved to Bel Air Junior High and bought a house somewhere. But Alan had this church, or all the commissions, in those days we had commissions. All the commissions were functioning. So all I had to do was come in here and do a lot of visiting on the people who showed up. I mentioned the whole mission-mindedness, and I would add to that a social justice component. There was a group in this church, and of course I was on that wavelength too, that would not let us forget the people who were less fortunate. I was here during the period of the Vietnam War, which I publicly opposed. We were here when busing was brought into Prince George's County. Lost about 10 families because I supported busing. And yet, the church continued to grow. There was a feeling here that that there was something to Jesus' message to the least and the lowest, and also that the church should have some word to say on the issues that were dividing the country. But I think that was how it let its light shine. And we also let our light shine to some of the other churches in the community who opted not to build, and we did, but still kept our mission and our commitment to social justice. Our church developed I think we might have called it a scholarship program, where we targeted, I don't know how many there were. There could have been 2, there could have been 5. Somebody here may remember more. Where we would provide scholarships and select children who lived in, referred to as Old Bowie then. And those kids were brought here and allowed the experience of this preschool. When Gordon Harvey was involved in taking all those cars down to somewhere down in West Virginia, that's just an example of what this church where its heart has been. I also feel good about the members that joined when I was here. Some of them are still here, providing leadership. And I feel good about that. A bad feeling for a preacher is after they've been to a church, they find that over the years that church dwindles and goes. This one has not. And I take some measure of satisfaction in that. And I really mourn the passing of Alan Hogel, the founding minister, because I can't say enough about the leadership that he provided in the beginning. And he caught some heck for it, because he pushed envelopes. He lived on the edge. And there were some people here who came from other places in the country that had the vision of what this church was going to be, and Alan was rather insistent that that mission was going to be preeminent, and social justice was going to be preeminent. And he just, well, he laid the foundation. I mean, he did. He established the organization, they established the preschool, he and Teddy. I wish he were around here at 50. And who knows, maybe he is. We were the spot for the High Holy Days for one of the Jewish congregations that was meeting over in what we call then Chapel Forge. I don't know. They came here. They came in here one night to get ready for their High Holy Day, and so they came and got me, took me in, and they had hung a sheet, a white sheet up. There was a cross in the fellowship hall up on the wall. They had this white sheet hanging up over that. So I walked in and I said, "Yeah, it's fine." I said, "I got a question. How did you get that sheet up there?" Then I said, I should not have said this. I said, "I'll tell you what, that sheet hanging over it calls more attention to it than if it weren't over it. It looks like Casper the Friendly Ghost." And then I couldn't just stop there. I said, "There is a cross up on top of the steeple that was on that room then." I said, "You know, I don't know how you're going to cover it up." Anyway, I then told him, "Okay, I'm Weight Watchers." The church was open to all sorts of community groups to come and use it. We always paid our apportionments. We had a very strong United Methodist women who kept us aware of the mission projects to which we could contribute. I guess the main thing is there was always a group here for whom that was a driving passion of theirs. The other thing that I would like to applaud this church for back then was the strong lay leadership. All those times that I was taking in 250 members, 100 members a year and all, I was the only paid staff person. When I left here at 1,200 and some members, there was no associate. One of the first things that was done when the new minister came was they hired a full-time associate. There were lay people here who assumed major responsibilities for the program. So it wasn't like I was the only one doing work here. I was not. I had good, strong lay leadership. And part of it was that this church had this pioneer, well, they were new. Church was new. So there's a kind of a pioneer mentality when you're doing that. And there's an excitement about what you're doing. You're creating something. And that was just there in this church. I like that about the church too. There was a kind of an interfaith openness that we had. Well, Bowie was like that. That when I would preach on what I considered social justice issues such as hunger, war, some would accuse me of preaching politics. So it began to be, if you talk social justice, all of a sudden it's labeled political. Mm-hmm. And that did kind of begin here. It was very tumultuous times in this country politically while I was here. King's assassination. And we still held on and built this building. And I've always appreciated that about this church. We stayed together. And in some very tough times for this country.
I think we were very, very busy, it seemed to me. We were always doing something. One of the things that stands out in my mind is the opportunity to get the youth to go to Camp Hope. And we went to Camp Hope the second summer I was here, and we continued to go. during my years, it was always in July, a week in July. And we went to, in Allegheny County, we stayed in the dorms at Frostburg, now University, and were assigned to homes to work on all around the county. And that was a wonderful experience for the youth and for the whole church. Well, I felt St. Matthew's was shining the light through the lay leadership. The lay leadership in this church was phenomenal. I'm sure it continues to be so. But we had youth counselors, youth leaders, music instructors, Sunday school teachers, people who filled the offices, just incredibly willing and able. Their commitment to their faith, their commitment to the church, to the community, to their families, was just always shining. This church, people would easily invite others to come because the church was a shining light in the community, and people were happy to be a part of St. Matthew's Church. The commitment of the youth in their musicals. We did Joseph, we did Godspell as a part of the community, the Rainbow Connection. There were musicals where the youth participated, enjoyed it, learned, and took it into the community. And even one weekend we took it to Baltimore and to the Eastern Shore. So we, the youth were certainly willing and able to be out there shining the light for Christ.
Who was the pastor then?
The pastor then, the senior pastor, was Ted Bowen. When I first arrived, Charles Harvey was the pastor. Charles was an absolute sweetheart. Such a pleasant person, quite enjoyable. He was extremely supportive of me. One of the first ways in which he was supportive of a woman coming for the first time as an appointed part of the staff was that somebody came and they wanted to be married at the church. But they didn't want a woman to marry him. And Charles said, then I won't marry you either.
Wow.
So it was, we were both pastors, we were both ordained, we were both appointed here, and he felt that if people did not want me to be their pastor, then he wasn't going to be it either. So he was very supportive. One of the ways in terms of shining the light really was the experience of having people who were members of this church and active in this church hearing their own call to ministry. While I was here, Connie Fitzke was active in the church, Andrea Titcomb was active, and Michael Fauconnet. All three of them eventually went on to seminary and into either deacon or elder ministries in the church. I've wondered as if some of the things that the youth were doing when I was here, that the adults decided they wanted to do that too. So the youth were doing the musicals, and now adults are. The youth were going on church camp and the mission projects, and now the adults are doing that. So I think that the adults wanted in on some of the action. One of the pleasures was to offer the children's message in worship on Sunday mornings, and have the little ones come forward and share in that.
When I came, St. Matthew's was in that period of history when worship was changing so much. And St. Matthew's was a wonderful worship center. And I learned so much about worship from my work here with Bill Wyatt. He was a wonderful worship leader, and he was working so hard to bring in the new hymns along with the old hymns. And so that's one way that St. Matthew's was shining the light in the community. At a later time, after Bill Wyatt had moved to another church, Bob Paulen came, and worship became very innovative. And if you were to ask me of special things to remember, I especially remember Bob giving his sermon when he was building his coffin, and that was a series. And I especially remember Bill and I doing dialogue sermons, and how he would get me to laughing so hard that I couldn't continue the sermon. So other ways that St. Matthew's was shining the light, I'd like to come back to Bill Wyatt again and say that he was also very aware of my need to feel a sense of authority in the church, and so he tried very hard to let me be a co-pastor with him, and I really appreciated that. He was very sensitive to women's issues and very sensitive to social issues, and a very kind and loving person. Other ways that St. Matthew's was shining the light, it had a wonderful youth group. I, at that time, lived in Southern Maryland, and my son liked the youth group so much, he was in high school, that he would come all the way up here with me. And he loved the youth group, and it was a very bright light in Bowie. Another shining light in the community of the church is the incredible music program. And I remember from the days at St. Matthew's, I remember Tavia playing Hail to the Redskins during worship. And the music was wonderful. We had wonderful youth musicals, and so the music program was a wonderful light in the community. I would like to say about the diverse and beautiful nature of the people here at St. Matthew's. There were so many people with so many talents, and I know that that has continued over these many years, and that it has made the church a vital, dynamic congregation. The one that I remember the best of the projects would be when Bob came and wanted us to move more and more into social issues. And he, therefore, started the homeless shelter in the church. And it was a very, very dramatic move for the church to make. And I'm sure that from that day forward, the church has, not that they didn't have mission before, but it put the mission right in the building. And then it grew from there, in addition to mission trips and other mission opportunities and social issue opportunities. One of the things that also stands out in my memory is that we were trying to make our meetings more interesting. I would drive up from Calvert County just to come to a meeting, and so we would try to make them more interesting and more robust, so that more work got accomplished. But what I wanted to add to that was that Fred Jackson made sure that we all hugged each other at the end of every meeting. So I seem again to be remembering the humor, but there was a lot of laughter and a lot of humor and a lot of hope. St. Matthew's has been able to combine the life of the Spirit and the life that it lives in the world and make them one. And so I hope that they will be able to continue living out their faith as a people, not only in the church building, but wherever they are and wherever they travel around the world. There is a joy of life, a joy of living, a hope for the future that they exemplify in everything that they're about. And so I hope that they will continue and grow and be everything that they have been into the future and more.
What we tried to do was develop lay leadership so that every member would consider themselves a minister. We tried to develop a culture of shared responsibility for lay and clergy. So that was kind of the background and the backbone. And then other specific projects that we entered into, I think, were strategic planning to try to develop a rationale and a roadmap for the years ahead. But I think we were trying to be intentional. and what we were seeking to accomplish. The initiation of the Disciple Bible Study, through the years, that's reached a lot of people and gave, again, a scriptural foundation for what we were trying to do strategically. The community projects, which in my view is at the heart of the gospel, but some of those more specifically were the developing of the shelter in the church basement and that conversion. And from that came Alpha House and Beta House. We expanded into daycare as part of our early education. And daycare and the nursery school now, fill up the church significantly during weekdays for ministry and education. We participated in a lot of volunteer and mission and VIM projects, particularly the one in Juarez, the installation and payment of the pipe organ. And I think that led significantly to our worship experience, enhancing it, and also to complete a part of the original dream. Well, I think St. Matthew's has always had a significant commitment to Christ and to the United Methodist Church, and I think they have always tried to live that out. And one of the ways that they did that was through several. I think our worship was creative and experimental frequently, and I think that they saw and experienced new facets of the light. Traditionally, we say, enter to worship, depart to serve. And I think people have taken that to heart and sought to live out their faith. And I think that's exemplified from the beginning of St. Matthew's. St. Matthew's has been known as a sanctuary for people in need. One was the use of the facility, because it's our most valuable asset, and so it is the major thing that we have to be in ministry through. And so I thought we were developing a kind of a 24/7 culture of the use of the facility for children, for youth, for adults, for communities, for strangers, and kind of an inclusive grouping. So it was our main resource, and so it needed to be used widely. That was one thing. Another moment that was memorable for me was bicycle visitation. It was helpful to meet people in their home or work setting, as opposed to just meeting them at church and at meetings. And so I got to different perspective and had new learnings from being with people in their homes, maybe meeting other members of the families, sharing a meal. But personal memorable moments I would say were two. They were the two extremes. One was when I came as your pastor, and I think a lot of the people must have wondered, what did they do to deserve this? You got a single pastor with 4 children, a biracial family, and we also had an exchange student that year from New Zealand. And I think that picture in the hall, I have long hair and a bushy beard. I think people must have wondered where to get this guy to send us. And then the other memorable moment was on the other end, the departure. My last experience at St. Matthew's is getting married. And so obviously that's a memorable experience, a gift of love from the congregation, the community, and Sandy. So no going away celebrations ever topped that for me.
The first project I think we got started here was the Christmas Stocking Project, the first year. And actually, we had started that at Capitol Hill, and we brought it here to St. Matthew's. Here, you're using kids who are just, and their parents are either one or both are incarcerated. And so we found that would be a viable ministry. And I think the second thing that we started was the Angel Gang, where three guys were suffering with cancer, and all three of them are gone. But it started this group of people who have either had a close brush with death or had cancer, and they've survived, and it became a group. And I remember one guy came, one of our charter members came, and he said, "Where's the agenda?" We ended the meeting, and he said, "Is that it? You just come here and laugh and carry on?" And I said, "I'm afraid that's our mission statement, to carry with us. We have no agenda whatsoever, we just carry on." The new wing, the Wesley wing was built, and my philosophy was to try to use all the talents of people that wanted to participate. And I'm not one that is too religious. I'm into spirituality more than anything else. And my thinking is to get people to be stakeholders in St. Matthew's by putting them to work. So a new wing brought people out of the woodwork, former engineers and whatnot from the congregation. And I did nothing but just watch. And it just came together, and this thing was built. We did that, and then this parlor, this is where the Bible study first met. And it was cinder block and floors that was a mess. And when they tore this up and had to bring in the asbestos people and all of that, we made this parlor for brides, and it's just been a wonderful resource for circle meetings and whatnot. This church and its church family has had the greatest mission experience. That the things that we did during disaster relief and getting the trailer and getting the truck and having that resource, and we had just enormous opportunities down in La Plata when a tornado came through, and of course Katrina, and teams went out. Teams went to Juarez, Mexico, because this is a mission church. We have, since I was here, we started the Volunteers in Mission with the men's shelter, Prince George's County Men's Shelter, the St. Matthew's School in Liberia, where we were sending textbooks and computers and everything over there, and the apartment downstairs. Then there was the shelter committee that was already in place. We had an Alpha House, and then we had Beta House, but we unloaded Beta House and stayed with Alpha, and that was another mission that was already here when I arrived. And then we had, of course, the crop walk. We initiated that, and we started collecting food for CCPC on the third Sunday of every. Giant Food gave us a cart to put the stuff in, just to kind of advertise. Remember the third Sundays when you bring food, and we supported them with cash and food. And then warm nights during Christmas week, the Jews helped us out on Christmas, and so that was a nice thing. And I think another one of the things we did was bring the Jews in. People letting their skills show in everything. And if you're like the nitwits, the people who were knitting, and you knit and you can just sit there and talk to each other, but you know that these lap robes are going to troops who don't have limbs. I think infusing the idea that what you're doing in the name of St. Matthew's is also, being a disciple of Christ and being a loving energy field wherever you go. But I just was enthralled with Oklahoma and all the scenery and everything. And you're doing it for people. You're doing it for and I thought, $5. I kept saying, go $30. I'd have paid $50 to come and see you guys. And $30, $5. And then the seniors would come in who, and that was a mission for us. And just to do that for the community, I think is a wonderful witness for the church. It brings new people in. Jessie Smith, well, I'm going to say Jessie Smith, she's a saint. And she came up to me, she said, what my dreams is? I've always wanted to do something outside and during the early service. After the early service or doing something before. And I said, let me work on that. And we started that. I just wanted to be with people And I didn't want them to stay away, so what they did is they came here in their scrubs, shorts and golf clubs in the trunk, so they could just get out there when the service was over and say, I've been to church. And we got them, and we got the offerings, so we kept our finances up because of that service. And people from the outside came to sit up here. And then the columbarium, what a beautiful. I was often embarrassed at administrative board meetings because when they came to the pastor's report, I really had nothing to say. I tried always with my life to fly under the radar because it's about the congregation, it's not about the pastor. And congregations grow when people invite people to church, not because of the popularity of a particular pastor. And people just need to do that. Come to my church, get involved in some of these projects, and your spirit will be used. And I think what a witness St. Matthew's is. We've got the location. The secret, I guess, for any pastor is just love your people, and let them know that you care and you're there for them, and then you can almost do anything with them, and that's sane. But I didn't do anything, honestly. I didn't do anything. It was the people who did it. They got together and do things. And I think you'll be around. I think St. Matthew's is going to be around for a long time and active as long as the people do not look for, if they look within themselves and produce as a congregation, it doesn't matter who's in the pulpit really, but it doesn't hurt to have somebody in the pulpit that's easy on the eyes, which Ginger is.
When I first came to St. Matthew's, it was such a blessing that the congregation had already begun to organize and think about the future. And so when I came, I was given kind of my marching orders, which was a great gift because what it told me was that I was coming among a people who were motivated and energized and really thinking about where God was calling them in the future. And so the things that I was asked to work on were things around leadership development and bringing together ministries and helping organize ministries and bring more and more lay folks into engagement with those ministries, do some training. I was asked to focus on youth and young adult ministries with children and families, and in general to continue to try to help create community that was inviting and growing and vibrant. Some of these are the places that I've spent a lot of time and energy. Particularly for me, one of the places that I've focused a lot has been on helping St. Matthew's really claim a vision of being the body of Christ, where each person here, no matter who they are or what kind of ministry they might be engaged in or how much they're able to be here, that they have an important role to play to help us be a healthy, vibrant community of faith. And that's one of the things that I've spent a great deal of time on. We've developed our nominations and leadership development team. They've been working really hard to help equip, train, lift up, and support servant leaders in our midst that I really believe are helping us grow and strengthen all that God is calling us to do and be. We've also reorganized and realigned staff to try to address some of the issues and the needs that we have programmatically. And so that's taken quite a bit of time and effort as well. I think perhaps, though, the thing that I've enjoyed most of all has been simply to journey with this community of faith as we continue to discern and think about what it is that we're really called to next. Because I just have felt since we got here, there was this sense of being on the verge of something. And so everything we've been working on, it just feels like we continue to kind of till the ground and plant seeds and begin to try to really look to see what it is that God wants to bring up among us and to grow among us. It's exciting to see how that's happening. Through communications, through our member care and support, things like our new meals ministry, the Luke 8 visitation team, all the ways that we're getting energized around creating and providing radical hospitality. These are some of the newer things that are happening. There are so many more. We continue to be really strong and focused around mission, and that's one of the places that I'm looking forward to see where God leads us next. I also want to say one of the things that was really exciting for me was to see the way that we came together last fall. I put out an idea. I said, we should figure out a way to lift up and celebrate who we are as we kick off a new year. Maybe we could have a little fellowship, an extra fellowship time after worship on our kickoff Sunday. Well, what happens at St. Matthew's when you do that, if you put an idea out there and the right person or persons get a hold of it, then it turns, you think you're planting a little seed, and it turns into this huge garden. And so last year, we had our first ever community fest, which was not a small little fellowship event after church, but instead a full day of truly radical hospitality, of opening our doors and our ministries and our mission and all that we are to the whole community. And it was such an amazing day, and I was inspired and saw really in a big way what God can do through this body of Christ when we say yes. And I'm excited to see how that continues to grow.